Welcome to Pick Up and Deliver, the podcast where I pick up my audio recorder as I head out for a walk and deliver an episode to you while I stroll around. I'm Brendan Riley. Well, good morning, listeners. It is a lovely day here in suburban Chicago. It's the end of May. This is the last episode I will record in May proper. Tomorrow is the 1st of June, and we'll be on month 6 of our journey through 2022. So I am coming to today with a new episode that I thought, I don't know, might make for an interesting podcast. And if it does, I will continue to do it probably once a month, or it might just be like, I'll probably try to do no more than one a month. It's called 400 Ago. I don't know, the 400. Oh, I could call it the 300, but then I have to do 300 episodes. I didn't prepare that. So anyway, this is inspired by three things. Primarily, my good friends over at the Forgot My Dice podcast have a episode format that they call A Year in the Life, where they look back at what they had done a year ago and talk about the game that was featured on that episode and if they're still playing it. Another podcast that I listened to recently, Boards Alive, they have a thing that they do 100 episodes ago, where they look back at whatever they were talking about 100 episodes previously. And of course, Tom Vassell does his look back, where he does 1 year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, as an episode where he talks about what he was looking at in those time periods. And it's nice because it gives you a chance to think about and reflect on the ways that your tastes have changed and the new games that have come out and how games have lasted over time. So what I thought I would do, because I'm in my 5th season in the 400s in terms of numbers, I could go back 400 episodes and look at what is the 400th previous episode and what was that like. And I was especially thinking about what I might do, because that was about 4 years ago. And it just so happened that the 400th episode, so this is going to be episode 441. So episode 41 is a top of the stack episode. So it might be interesting to use those as the touch points. Like the last episode of each month could be a look back at 4 years previously, what happened in the top of the stack for that month then. Or I'll just look at 400 episodes previous and just talk about whatever was there. I don't know yet. We'll see where it goes. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. You can share those with me in a number of ways. The easiest way is over on Board Game Geek and Guild 3269. We've been having some really interesting conversations there lately. A couple members had been away from the podcast for a while, and they're catching up. So they posted a podcast catch-up thread, which has been pretty active. We've had a little bit of discussion about Matainai versus Res Arcana. Some really good discussions there about the two games and what makes them special. So head over to the Guild, or share your thoughts about this look back episode. What format is going to work best? Should I do all 4 years back? Should I do 1 year and 4 years, sort of a Tom Vassell style? Should I just do the month, like look at 4 years ago to the month and look at the top of the stack from that month? Or should I do 400 episodes ago? All of those are available, and I haven't decided which one I'm locking in on yet, because today it's both 400 episodes ago, episode 41, but also it's the top of the stack. It's top of the stack for May 2018. So in May 2018, I was wrapping up April, and the 3 games that I had tried to play were Ravenous River, Unreal Estate, and Crow's Overkill. So let's talk about those a little bit. Ravenous River was an interesting little deduction/area control game in which you are trying to control different animals going across the river. It was designed by Isaac Shalev, published by AEG. I don't know where I remember those facts particularly, but what I do remember is that it was really interesting because it's sort of based in the old Mind Teaser about the farmer who has a bag of feed, a chicken, and a wolf, or a coyote or something, and he has to get all 3 of them across the river, but his boat can only hold 1 at a time, and if he leaves the chicken alone with the feed or the dog alone with the chicken, then they will eat that thing. And so the question is, how does he get all 3 things across the river? It's a classic mind teaser. If you've never heard it before, go ahead and ponder the answer, and you can either look up the answer, or maybe if I remember, I'll reveal it at the end of the episode. So That's what Ravenous River is, cute little animals, but it's all about sort of figuring out which animals are on which boats and which animals will eat which other animals. I remember thinking it was fun. My son and I played a few games of it, but ultimately it was not fun enough to stay in the collection because I just have tons of games, and so it didn't make the cut, and I did move it along. So that was Ravenous River. Unreal Estate is another small card game in which you're building tableau of buildings, and it's sort of a set collection thing. You're trying to get a certain number of buildings of the same type, and then you get points, if I recall. I remember the art being pretty cute. The game was published by Grand Gamers Guild. I don't recall the name of the designer. My apologies, designer. Unreal Estate is another one of those small games that was fine. We played it a few times. It didn't really catch on. And I will say, it didn't get called right away. I had, I guess, slightly stronger feelings toward it. Actually, as I recall, Ravenous River, it was that my wife really didn't like Ravenous River, whereas Unreal Estate she thought was fine. And so when I'm trying to decide which one to cut, if my wife actively doesn't like it, that game has to score a lot higher in my estimation in order to stay. And so Ravenous River had gotten culled. I will say right now, in my sale pile, which I might actually post some of those today, Unreal Estate is one of the games in the sale pile right now. And then finally, Crow's Overkill. This is a game, it has been released in subsequent years here in the US. I don't recall who the publisher is, but the original game that I got, my buddy bought for me in Hong Kong. And this is a game about trying to stay all night in a Japanese brothel, in the idea that it's based on an old poem where this guy has spent all night with his mistress, and he doesn't want to leave, but he knows that when he hears the birds chirping in the morning, he's going to have to leave, and so he wants to kill all the crows so that he never has to leave. It's a weird theme for a game, but basically it's set collection. You're trying to get different kinds of birds, and you're trying to not have too many of a particular kind of bird outside your window, and be the one who gets to stay in bed the longest, I guess. The game itself doesn't have any salacious art, and you could probably come up with an alternative theme to present to your players that wouldn't be about staying at a brothel, but that is the idea of the game. It did not make the cut either. I've since gotten rid of it. That's Crow's Overkill. So May 2018, an interesting month in which I played a bunch of games that I would ultimately not keep. At the same time, I did have a couple other brand new games to me that made their way into my sphere of knowledge. And I would say all three of those got higher in my estimation, which goes to show sometimes I have better luck at finding new games to play than I have at choosing which games I'm going to play. So the three games that were new to me that month that I wanted to talk about, the first was Sagrada. Sagrada, of course, is the game themed around building a stained glass window. This has since become a family favorite of ours. We really enjoyed this one. The crunchy element of choosing a dice and putting it into the grid really pays off nicely. It's a pretty game to look at. It's fun to play. Sagrada is a real winner. This is a game we've played many times in my house, and I've purchased all the expansions, although we haven't actually tried them all. I think the most recent one had these dice with arrows on them, and we haven't gotten to try that yet. And I know there's a Sagrada Legacy apparently coming sometime. I don't know what that'll be, and it's interesting because Sagrada is so non-narrative that it's weird to think of them trying to make a legacy game of it, because legacy games generally, I think of them as being narrative, although I guess there's nothing that says the legacy elements can't be theme-based rather than narrative-based. Anyway, we'll see what happens with that. I'm sure given how much we like Sagrada, that will be part of our purchases when we are looking at new games. In the meantime, like I said, Sagrada has become a favorite. What's interesting to me about this one is I was at a game day where we played Sagrada, Crow's Overkill, and then the next one I'm going to mention, Not Alone, all at once, or all in one sitting. I think we played at the Bonus Round Cafe. And I thought Sagrada was fine, but I definitely, on my first play, I put it in the fine category. In fact, I bet if you go and listen to me talking about it, I'll say, it was fine. Not that exciting though. What I hadn't counted on was how much my wife would like it. So Sagrada is one of those games a friend of mine bought, and he brought it over to play. And I didn't think my wife would like it because I thought she's often theme and story-based. But something about that particular game really appealed to her and ended up being a big winner for us and led me down a new path of kinds of games that she enjoys, which is sort of mid to lightweight puzzly games where there's interesting tactical decisions to make, but not a ton of long-term strategy needed. That the longer arc of strategy isn't as important for the gameplay as the narrower window of the tactical decisions that you have to make. So games like Azul, Calico, Cascadia, and Sagrada is sort of the first of those that we played. So Sagrada has since become a really prominent game in our collection, even though my first impression of it was just sort of meh. I stand corrected on that one. Another game, Not Alone. We played this in person. I thought it was pretty fun. I've played it online a few times since, and I've kind of wavered up and down on this one. I think it's pretty good at middle numbers, but if it gets very high, I think it's not as fun, and played with just like the minimum 3 people is probably not as fun either. So like 4 or 5 is probably really good. I think it goes up to 6. I think 4 is probably the best number. If you haven't played Not Alone, the idea is that you are a group of some sort of space explorers, and you have landed on a planet, and there is some sort of monster on that planet trying to eat you. You start with 5 different locations you can go to, and each round the players can talk about what they're going to do and where they're going to go. But the player who's being the alien, can hear them. And everyone secretly decides where they're going to go. And then you all reveal it at the same time. And if the alien has gone to the same place as any of the players, the alien gets to hurt them and get their points. There are, I think, 5 additional locations that you don't have access to at the beginning of the game. But I think 1 or 2 of the locations you go to can give you access to more locations. And so the process of getting more locations is a big part of the game, because it also makes it harder for the alien to find you if you have, say, 6 or 7 or 8 locations you can go to instead of 5. Yeah, it works out really nice. The art is cool. The theme is great. And generally I found it to be pretty balanced. The alien doesn't win every time. The humans don't win every time. It's a mix. So all in all, Not Alone, it's a good one. I would recommend giving it a try, and encourage you to put it in your playlist. That is available on Board Game Arena as well. So if any of the members of the Pick Up and Deliver Guild want to give it a try, we could play that. And then finally, I did get a chance to play in May of 2018 Empires of the Void 2. This was with my friend Paul, who got a copy of it. He is my friend who gets all the Red Raven games. So when I want to play a Red Raven game, I can just give Paul a call. And I thought Empires of the Void 2 was really good. I hadn't played the original before, and it's a strong 4X game without too much emphasis on the extermination part of the 4Xs. Really nice components, lovely art, fun theme. I like sci-fi a little more than fantasy, so it was nice to see Ryan Lockett pushing in that direction. All in all, I really enjoyed the mechanisms and play of Empires of the Void 2, so much so that when I did my 2019 top 50 games, Empires of the Void made it in there. You can find that if you go to, well, I'll put it in the show notes. I'll put a link to my 2019 top 50. But so the evolution of that for me is just that I haven't played it since. We played it the one time. It was pretty long, and again, not to my wife's taste because it's science fiction. So not a game that I've had a chance to play again, but I certainly would like to if I did get a chance, because I remember it being pretty cool. So that's what I was doing 4 years ago in May of 2018 here on the podcast. Yeah, let me know what you think of this kind of reminiscing episode. Is this something you'd like to hear more of? Do you want me to just reflect on 400 episodes ago? I gotta say, that's the way I'm leaning. I think reflecting on the top of the stack every time is not gonna be as fulfilling. The one bit of prep I might try to do in future is to actually listen to that episode from 4 years ago, so I remember specifically what I said. I haven't decided for sure if I want to do that yet, because again, part of the premise of this podcast is to do very little prep and very little editing, and because it's supposed to be something I do during an activity I would do anyway, rather than something I go out of the way and do extra. Not that I don't like to spend time to y'all, and truth is I do spend time editing and working on the podcast, but more just the idea it's meant to fill a role for me that I otherwise would be time wasted or time not used talking to my friends about board games. So, what have you been playing lately? What were you doing 4 years ago? If you keep track of anything like stats, or you make a podcast that comes out on the regular, what did it look like 4 years ago for you in gaming? Head over to Board Game Geek Guild 3269 and let me know what you think of this episode format, as well as what you were doing 4 years ago, or what you think of those games I just mentioned. You can reach out to me directly on Board Game Geek. I'm Wombat929. That's also my username on Boitaju, Board Game Arena, and Yukata.de. So any of those places would be an excellent way to get a hold of me or play games with me. If you want to get a hold of me more directly, you can send me an email message, brendan@rattleboxgames.com. I will see that. Or you could reach out to me on social media. I'm on Twitter as Digital Sextant. And yeah, so the last thing I want to mention, I'm sure I'll talk about this a lot more in the coming months, but I've mentioned a number of times Bigfoot Roll and Smash, a new game that Rob and I designed that's coming out from XYZ Game Labs. The pre-orders are now open. I will post a link in the show notes, but if you haven't had a chance to take a look yet, please do head over to bigfootrollsmash.com and take a look at what's going on with that game. It's really great. The price point is very low for the content that you get in the box, and if you get the bundle, you can get $10 off shipping as well to get the expansion and the main game. It's really a great deal. So I really recommend, I'd love it if you could go take a look and tell your friends. Bigfoot Roll and Smash, a family-friendly game about monster trucks. You'll love it. All right, thanks for joining me today. I hope that your next walk is as pleasant as mine was. Bye-bye.
Brought to you by Rattlebox Games.